Hey, welcome back. I'm Tom. This is Global Time Traveler. Glad you're back with me today. We are going to talk about dive watches. And we're going to talk about the criteria that makes a good dive watch. We'll talk about a new one that I just got, which is the MONARTE SQUID. Beautiful piece. I think you'll be real happy to learn about this one. I'm really impressed with this watch. Very special. And we'll go through all of the things that make this unique and a terrific timepiece for a relatively affordable price as well. But first, what am I wearing today? I also got a new Boulevard Jetstar. So this is a high accuracy, high frequency quartz movement, 262 kilohertz. Accuracy of this watch is seconds per year. I don't know exactly how many seconds, something along the lines of 10 or 20 seconds a year. But that's a year. It's got a clean sweep to it, so it doesn't do a jump minute like your typical quartz watch will. In fact, I'd say it's almost as smooth as a spring drive. A lot smoother than your standard 2 or 4 or even 5 hertz movement mechanical watches. It's in a charcoal gray with a date window. It's got a 3-dimensional dial to it, and I think it looks great. Highly polished stainless steel case on a nice leather strap. It was about $300. Good value for money, my opinion. So let's get into dive watches. Actually, no. First, I'm going to show you another toy. I've got the T-Rex up behind me that I showed last time. Here's to you, TGV. Hope you're doing all right. This is what we call a stick in my line of work. So it's an airplane on the end of a stick with which you can illustrate relative positioning and maneuvering of the aircraft when you're instructing to a young student. You can use it either in pairs or individually to show certain types of maneuvering, and again, the relative positions of the two airplanes when you are maneuvering and counter-maneuvering against one another. In either 1v1, one against one fighting, or in larger force types of employments. But we call this a stick. There are some things that you never do with this stick. You never point with it. You never ever wave it around. You illustrate your point, you put it down again. That's important. I know it sounds little, but it's basic respect of the tool. So when we talk about the first dive watches, one of the original ones was a Panerai, the Panerai California. Got a picture of that coming up on the display now. And so that was designed and used back in the 1930s. And then, after the Second World War, a Frenchman named Jacques Cousteau, and those of us who are old enough to remember, the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau was on PBS and certain other television stations back before cable existed. He was a co-developer of what he called the aqualung. The aqualung is essentially the scuba equipment that we use today. Now, clearly, over the decades, it's been improved. It has more accuracy, better regulators, better buoyancy, all the various things that you would imagine for diving. But he was one of the originators of that. And that opened up the undersea world to regular people. Now, I'm a diver. I'm not a particularly good one. I'm not a particularly experienced one. I only have, I don't know, maybe a dozen and a half dives to my name, maybe 2 dozen at the most. I'd have to check my log. But scuba diving is awesome. Absolutely amazing. To go down to 10, 15, 20, 25 meters underwater. I've been fortunate enough to dive in some of the greatest dive locations in the world. Maldives, Thailand, the Red Sea off of Egypt, as well as the Red Sea off of Saudi Arabia, the Caribbean, crystal clear waters with lots of wildlife, lots of coral, and it is just amazing. And it's so rewarding to be able to access that part of our world. The dive watch allowed the individual to track both the length of time that he'd been underwater and the amount of time that they had left. Both of those are very important. The amount of time at depth may require you to decompress as you come back up from those high pressures that you'll experience down at depth. And how much time you have left is real important, because if you run out of air, you're in big trouble. And I would like to give a quick remembrance to a good friend of mine, Juan Garcia. Sadly, back around 1992, he had a tragic accident cave diving in Florida. He got trapped and he drowned. But he was a great guy, a great friend I knew from university, and I've missed him ever since I found out about his accident. So Juan, wherever you are, we're still thinking of you. Anyway, let's get into the characteristics of a good dive watch. The first thing that we'll talk about are now ISO, the International Organization for Standardization, is an organization of industry and experts in their fields that come together and develop a set of standards that apply to whatever the issue is. In this particular case, it is dive watches. And so they've developed a whole series of tests that ensure that that particular timepiece is rugged and durable and accurate and resistant to the various environmental threats that are down there for a watch. Things like magnetic resistance, shock resistance, most importantly, water resistance. And they have developed a whole series of tests to ensure that the watch meets those standards. Now, those tests can be administered either by an independent third party, which of course costs money. So a lot of manufacturers don't really want to do that. What they can do, however, is certify through in-house testing that the watch meets those requirements. And that's how most companies will do it. Not all watches that look to be a dive watch are in compliance with ISO 6425. They just aren't. The company hasn't spent the money and the time and the effort to ensure that it fully complies. So as we said, some watch companies will perform those tests in-house, and some will send them off to a third party. Some examples of watches that do meet the standard are Helm, Citizen, Tissot, Zodiac, Seiko, Orient, Zinn, Rolex, of course. Rolex does all of their testing in-house, Doxa, Omega, Panerai, IWC, and the Monarch that we're going to look at today, amongst many others. Many companies do meet these standards, but those are a few examples. The last comment that I'll make about dive watches is, in my opinion, the dive watch is more of a style statement these days. As a diver, there's no way I'm going to be using a mechanical watch when I dive. It's simply not used anymore. You will use a digital dive computer, or even two of them, so that you have redundancy. Those dive computers are accurate. They measure the time, they measure the depth, they measure the time at depth. They'll do any calculations for any decompression that you need to do, which typically as a sport diver you're not going to have to do or shouldn't have to do. And a lot of other calculations that are of interest to a diver. So for me, in my humble opinion, the dive watch as a tool is passé. It's a thing of the past. It's a buggy whip. Okay, we don't use those anymore. They were great in their day, and they served a very functional purpose. But in terms of the purpose that they're intended for, there's a better tool for it available today. And that's what you'll use. Doesn't mean that that is the exclusive way to do it. Some people may still prefer to dive with a mechanical watch or even a quartz watch. That's on them. And that's their option and their opinion, and there is nothing wrong with that. I'm simply expressing my opinion on this matter. If you really want to learn an awful lot more about them, there's a great review and great discussion that was done a couple of years back by Cold Pizza Watch Reviews. I'll put the link on the display here so that if you're really interested, you can go and take a look at it. Additionally, there's always Wikipedia if you want to read a little bit more about it and have a little bit better understanding of what happens. let's talk a few minutes on my Monarte. So I just received this. I had this on order from Monarte for quite some time. Monarte is a watch company based in Lithuania. They have a design studio, I believe it's in Estonia, and their manufacturing and assembly plant is in Switzerland. So these watches are Swiss made. The company co-founder, Domen, great guy. He's been awesome to work with, and his heart is definitely in the right place when it comes to watches and watchmaking. He believes in quality. He doesn't cut corners. He doesn't overcharge. And I think what he offers is a really good quality piece for a fair price. Now, the model that I bought is a limited edition. So it has a few extra special features over the regular edition. They both come in 3 colorways: a blue, which I have, a green, and a black. The dial configuration, the design for those is all the same. It's simply just the color is different. The watch itself has an ETA 2824-2 top grade movement. And I'll show you on my time grapher, this has been anywhere from 0 to -1 to maybe +2 seconds in several different positions. And this has been operating magnificently so far. Now, a couple of things that make this movement extra special is Domen and his company have added a couple of high-end touches to this, in addition to some of the finishing and the beautification of it. There's a Triovis regulator, which is a fine screw adjustment for regulating the performance of the balance wheel. And as we said, that gives us about 2 seconds a day. This was developed in Switzerland by Valdar SA, which in turn had been purchased by the Swatch Group in 2010. Now, this regulator is found in several of the high-end watches, including Maurice Lacroix, Vacheron Constantin, Tudor, Nomos, Richard Mille, and Hublot. Sorry, Nico. By using a small push pin and moving the radius of that hairspring, that fine adjustment screw can allow very, very minute adjustments in order to get that hairspring and that balance wheel to move consistently and give you rock solid performance in terms of accuracy. An additional special touch on this is the KIF shock absorber. Now, we said shock absorption is very important in a dive watch. In fact, it's very important in all watches. You don't want to drop your watch or whack it on something and have it not function anymore. But this particular componentry, and you'll see a couple of photos here, it is a removable set of pieces for mitigating shock on that balance wheel. This particular model was developed by KIF Parashock in Switzerland, and they are one of the largest manufacturers of watch anti-shock devices in the world, and one of the most famous. And their main competitor is Incabloc. Now, who uses KIF? Well, prior to Rolex coming up with their own in-house version, Rolex used to use it. Tudor still does, and AP uses this system as well. So looking at all the specifications of the watch, it is 40.5 millimeters in diameter, 11.4 millimeters high, 47 plus a little bit lug to lug. Like we said, it's got that modified 2824 top grade movement in it. It is ISO certified to 300 meters. So meaning it's passed all of those tests. It's been regulated in 6 positions. And like I said, I'm getting about 1 second a day performance on this so far, which I think is absolutely spectacular. It has a flat sapphire crystal with lots of anti-reflective coating on it. 20 millimeter lugs. It came on a really nice stainless steel bracelet with an extension. It's 316L stainless steel, screw down crown. The limited edition has an exhibition screw-down case back to show off that modified ETA movement. And as you'll see in the photographs and in the video, there's a gold rotor for this that gives it all that, just that little extra bit of sexiness. So let's take a look at the watch itself. As I said, it's about just under 41 millimeters in diameter. My watch has a beautiful three-dimensional dial with applied indices with lots of lume on them. It is stainless steel case. It has a unidirectional rotating bezel. The minute hands, or the hour and minute hands, are sort of a fence post. They're very uniform, very simple, very clean. There's an applied logo at the top and some text down by the 6 o'clock date window. Now, I'm usually a fan of a color-matched date window. This particular watch with that white date window, I think, does a very, very nice job aiding legibility for my old eyes to be able to read that small print. You'll see nice crown guards on there. What I really like about this watch is it is primarily polished, but that chamfer right by the division between the top of the lugs and the sidewall of the mid case is very, very nicely polished and catches and reflects light absolutely beautifully. It's a subtle feature that you don't really expect, but when you see it, just go, wow, that's beautiful. Additionally, the end link, where it meets the case, has some very nice, subtle, complex curvatures that go into the bracelet. And again, it doesn't look like much at first glance, but when you take a very close look at it, it's just gorgeous and really adds a lot to the character of that watch, in my opinion. Turning it over, looking at the back, you can see that ETA movement with that gold rotor. It does have a lot of printing around the exhibition window, but that's just fine. Some people don't really like that. I've heard a couple of YouTube content creators making jokes about the amount of printing that's on the backs. It's on your wrist. You're not going to see it. It doesn't really matter. There are quick release for the bracelet, so you could swap it out very quickly for a rubber strap if you were going to take this into the water. The bracelet itself, standard 3-link oyster-looking bracelet with a beautifully milled clasp with the logo signed on the back, folds out nicely and reconnects with a very nice click. Overall, I think this watch is beautiful to look at. It is functional. It is tool-like. It meets all of the requirements and standards that one would be looking for. It's a reasonable value for what you're getting, in my opinion. Performance is fantastic. And Doman is a great guy to deal with. All right. Thanks for joining me for part 1 on divers. Part 2, I'm going to talk more about some of the watches that I have in my collection. My ever-expanding collection, like my ever-expanding waistline. Actually, no. I've actually lost some weight in the last few months, so I'm kind of happy about that. I pat myself on the back, but my elbows don't work anymore and I can't reach. But thanks for joining me. I do appreciate it. Like and subscribe, as we all say. I think I'm up to 2 subscribers now, so I'm doing good. But we're having fun. I enjoy it. I hope you're enjoying getting something out of it as well. So as always, be well, be kind, and take care. Cheers. I'll be back in part 2.